Good morning. No, not morning. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Knit Shift, episode 49. My name is Laura, and today is Monday, April 4th, 2016. I guess I'm so used to recording in the morning that I just always am used to saying good morning. But it is most definitely the afternoon. In fact, it's almost dinner time here. If you're coming back, you probably can tell this is not your normal view of my apartment. I switched things up today. I'm gonna see how it goes, see how the lighting is. This setup might work better when I record in the afternoons. So anyway, enough of that. Show notes can be found at theknitshift.com. I am on Instagram as Laura Mahalski. I'm on Ravelry as Yarnstormer, and we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast called The Knit Shift. So give us a search, come on over. We have a Knitalong that just started that I'll talk a little bit more about later. I feel like I was forgetting something to tell you about the general where you can find me stuff, but maybe not. So again, I don't think I said this, but welcome if you are new. I hope you enjoy my podcast, and if you're coming back, thank you so much for spending a little bit more of your time with me. I have so much to tell you guys today. I have to confess that when I started my day, I didn't know if I was going to record today. I had to take my car to the shop, which required getting up really early, and my boyfriend drove my car over to the shop, and nothing's wrong with it. I just needed an oil change and 2 tires replaced, as it turned out. But I had to get up really early because he's at work by 7 a.m. So we had to get my car to the shop really early. That's early for me. Again, I work the night shift. So, and that's why my podcast is called The Knit Shift. If you are new or newish, I work a night shift as a journalist, kind of second shift, like afternoon, late evening. Anyway, I'm going off topic. Anyway, I had to get up so early. I came home and I went back to bed, and I was kind of on the struggle bus this morning. Like I just didn't get much sleep. The Walking Dead kind of shattered me last night, but I'll try and remember to come back to that later. But it turned into a really beautiful day, and I had lunch plans with a friend, and then we hung out and knit for a little bit. And hi Marissa. And then it was just so gorgeous out. I couldn't bring myself to come back to the apartment and record. I really wanted to enjoy a little bit of the sunshine a little bit longer. So I went to the library, which I'll talk about later because it involves knitting. And I went to, I just sat outside and on the river and knit for a few minutes and drank my latte from a coffee shop. And I had a piece of Nutella banana bread, which didn't think banana bread could get much better, but adding Nutella to it just elevates it to a whole new place. And it was so nice, and I recorded a little bit of footage that you guys will see at the end of the episode. It's spring. I live in Southeast Virginia. It's just such a great time of year, and Laura of today is really happy that Laura of early January started taking her Zyrtec, in early January. So I've had no problems with allergies. I've really built up the allergy meds in my system. So I've been able to go outside and I'm not sniffly in the morning. So it was just, I'm really enjoying springtime, and Norfolk is just lovely in the springtime before it gets too hot and sticky. So I did that. But then I started making my notes for the episode, and I was like, oh, I don't know when I can record this week, so I need to do it today. I needed to do it today, and the lighting just works better. Directly behind the camera are windows, which are normally to the side of me when I record, but I really think this lighting is really good, so I might stick with this setup here on my couch. Anyway, that was a very long intro. We have a lot to talk about. So for you today, I have a new work in progress that I am obsessed with. I have many patterns that I am finding through friends on Instagram or Ravelry, and I wanted to share with you because I think they're pretty. I really have shawls on the brain. And I have the results of the Antarktis Knitalong giveaway because that ended March 31st, and I drew some numbers in the random generator before I started filming, and I have the winners to announce. So that'll be at the end of the episode. And I wanted to say thank you to everyone who gave me feedback after my last episode about how to attach a pom-pom. It's funny, it's Monday afternoon. Yesterday morning, it was so cold out when Josh and I took Gracie for a WALK. She's sleeping over there. And I can't say that word, even though she just had one. We took her for one, and it was so cold out. I wore a winter hat, and it was really blustery, and it was so nice. I wore my new hat with the pom-pom on it, my sockhead hat, and I could still feel the pom-pom just kind of flopping around a little bit. It just was not quite as secure as I would have liked. So I wanted to mention the first few people to give me some advice on how to attach it. UC Socks, who you don't have your name listed on your profile, she suggested putting a button inside of the hat, which is a great idea. And Simona, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Simona Maloney, her name is Simona, she suggested using a snap, which I like even more because then the snap is very easily detachable and, for washing purposes. So I might look into a snap. And Simona actually sells snaps in her Etsy shop, which is Recycled Yarn Company, and I'll link to her in the show notes. So thank you guys, and many of you echoed those suggestions. So thank you very much for the suggestions. I am going to look into reattaching my pom-pom, and hopefully I won't have to, I have all summer and fall to sort it out before I wear that hat again. So yeah, I have no finished knits for you this week, unfortunately. I think I'm not in a place where I'm going to have a finished knit in the next week or two, which is a bummer, because I would love to have a finished knit very soon, but I just don't think it's going to happen. But I do have 2 works in progress to share with you. The first is a sock that I am carrying around in my cute little llama bag that I purchased at a shop in Richmond. I love this side the most. She's just so fashionable, this llama. Look at her neck bling. Oh, she is too cute. So this is a sock I am knitting out of Desert Vista Dye Works, which I thought I had the label sitting here. I'm really bad about it. I'm one of those podcasters that is always losing her yarn labels, and I totally had it here, and now I don't know what I did with it. The couch ate it. Anyhow, so I'm knitting this out of Desert Vista Dye Works in the Viso base, which is a 75/25 Super Wash Merino nylon. I want to say it's 400 yards, but I can't remember because, again, I lost said label. Last week, let me untangle this from the needles. Oops, I'm in the middle of a row. I was knitting on this outside today, and it was so windy. I had to turn my head from the wind, and I just was like, I'm going to put this yarn away right now and not even knit to the end of the row because it was crazy blustery. So, here is what it looks like knitted up. This was my reminder. This stitch marker is not a progress keeper. This was as I started the gusset. This was I used the stitch marker to remind myself which half of the sock was the front and which was the back, because sometimes I need that help. So this is a very large sock, as you can see. I'm knitting these for my brother. Oh, and the colorway of this yarn is Harold's Purple Crayon. Last week I had just started the gusset, so I was right about there, I want to say, when I began. So you can see I finished the gusset, I did the heel turn, heel flap, and I am now carrying on up the leg. So I'm really loving how this is working up. I'm knitting these on size 1 Chigoos. You can see how nice and sharp they are. I really like them. I knit most of my socks on Chigoos. So yeah, maybe if I'm lucky, I will have this first sock done next week, but don't count on it because I'm super obsessed with my other work in progress. And I said these are for my brother who has size 12 feet. And you can see that the stripes are kind of a lovely purpley fuchsia, sky blue, and eggplant. So the colorway name is inspired by the children's book Harold and the Purple Crayon by Crockett Johnson, which we read when I was a little kid, as so many people do. So I'm really enjoying this. I think I said last week that if I don't have a sock on the needles, I feel kind of twitchy. So I'm glad to have a sock on the needles, and sometimes this is just easier to stick in my purse versus my next project, which, I like to have sock knitting on the go. Oh, and a car alarm is going off in my neighborhood. Oh, it stopped. Hopefully that's the end of it. So that is my first work in progress, and my next work in progress is something I am making for the Friend-along, which is our Knitalong in the podcast group that started April 1st, so just 3 or 4 days ago. And the Friend-along, the goal of it is to knit something or crochet or spin, whatever. Make something that is inspired by a friend, from yarn that a friend bought for you, from yarn that reminds you of a friend. It could be a gift you're making for a friend or a loved one. Just any way you can make it apply to your life is fine by me. So we have a thread for chatter. I will also start a thread for FOs probably after I get this episode edited. And we're using a hashtag on Instagram. You can always use hashtag TKSKAL for the Knit Shift Knitalong, but specifically for this Knitalong, we're doing, it's hashtag, is it TKS Friend-along? I guess I should have looked at my phone before I told you that. Let's see. Yes, hashtag TKS Friend-along. So I don't know how long it'll last, at least through the end of May, if not the end of June, so stay tuned. So I haven't really been carrying this project around in a bag, but for going to Marissa's house today, I put the project in this bag. I don't always use project bags. If I'm carrying a project around, I do, because I don't want to just put my sock in my purse where there's like dust and associated purse schmutz that could get all over it. So, and truth be told, I've been knitting on this project almost exclusively all week, so I haven't had a need for a project bag because it's just sitting on my knitting chair on the other side of the camera, and I've just been working on it like mad. So I am using hand spun that my friend Casey made for me. She's a friend of the podcast. She has been featured before when we were together. She lives in Tennessee, but she surprised myself and a couple other friends with some hand spun that she made for each of us, and I love this so much. I love crazy colors. I think this is so gorgeous. And you can she used all sorts of scrappy bits of roving, and you can just see all the many colors in there. So this is what I am making. Oh, it looks so pretty in the sunlight. This is the Age of Brass and Steam Kerchief by Orange Flower Yarn. It's a free pattern. It calls for DK to worsted weight yarn, about 230 yards, but this is kind of a heavy fingering weight, and I have about 330 yards. So I am loosely basing this shawl on that pattern. Because it's free, I can tell you it's stockinette, followed by eyelet, followed by stockinette, followed by eyelet, and you can see that I have 1, 2, and I just finished the third bit of eyelet right there. And the pattern calls for ending it after this third eyelet, but I mean, this is just not big. I mean, this is, I guess it could be a tiny little shawlette, but I have a lot of yarn left, so I'm going to keep going with this, and basically until I run out. And then I'm going to knit on a lace border with a white or a gray yarn to make it a little bigger and just give it a little more oomph, I think. It's very possible I will keep knitting on this and just decide to do like a garter edging. So I'll just hold this up again so you can see just how glorious these colors are. So you can see it's like a pale blue. I'm trying to stay behind it so it focuses on the yarn and not me. It started with pale blue and goes into red, and I think my favorite part, I say I have a new favorite part every time, but I really love how this teal transitions into an orange right at this eyelet right here. I just think that's so pretty kind of that peachy orange. And then, but now my new favorite is this bright blue part that I just got into, the teal and the just turquoise aqua deliciousness. So I'm loving this so much. I feel like the color is changing every row or two. And I just think this is going to be the greatest little, it's so warm. Like when I'm on a group chat with Casey and my two other road trip buddies that we go on knitting adventures with, and we've basically had the text message going for like, I don't know, 6 months or something since our last get together. And every night I'm like sending them a picture of this because it's just so pretty. And all I'm doing is balancing it right on my chest here. And it's so warm. Oh my gosh, it's just so cozy. I don't know what yarn. Casey said it's a lot of different types of wool. So there's probably some merino. I'm guessing it's mostly merino. Maybe even BFL. It's just so soft. I don't want it to look like I'm groping myself, so I'm trying to keep my hands up here. But I just love this so much, and I think this will be the perfect little shawl to wear with like a black t-shirt or a gray t-shirt, just something very solid. And I won't be able to wear this to work very much because I generally wear pattern dresses to work, and I just think this would be way too busy for it. But I feel like in terms of a weekend little throw it around my shoulders kind of shawl, I love this so much. So much. Casey, I can't thank you enough. This is just so stunning. I love it. And I do have some more hand spun in my stash, and you can bet your britches that I'm probably going to be knitting it up very soon. So, and I'm knitting that on size 7 needles. So, and I do have some yarn in mind to possibly knit the border, but I'm going to keep going on this and see how it progresses before I commit to the knitted on border. But I'm keeping it in mind as an option if I want to make the shawl a little bit bigger. So those are my 2 works in progress this week. And in terms of modifications for that, adjust my seating here. In terms of modifications, the shawl, let me see if there's a photo on the pattern. The shawl, you can see here, it does not have a center, there's no like center yarn over, but I chose to do a center yarn over instead of a make one left and a make one right. I just make one left and make one right feel like they're really slow to me, and I would rather just do a yarn over, but personal preference. And I am always purling, no matter if it's an eyelet row, a wrong side row or not, I'm always purling the center 3 stitches, which are the yarn over, the very middle stitch, and the yarn over. So those are my only modifications. Okay. Those are it for works in progress, and that brings us to spinning. I know if you've been watching this for any length of time, you're like, holy crap, did she just say spinning? Because I got my spindle ages ago, and in fact I got a second spindle which has never been used, thanks to my mom. Thanks, Mom. I love it. It's gorgeous, even if I'm not using it. But I finally went to the library today and checked out a few books on spinning. And from reading on Ravelry and watching other podcasts, Respect the Spindle really seems to be the way to go. So that's one book that I checked out. It's by Abby Frankmont. So I'm very excited to read that. It just looks very comprehensive, and it has chapters on, let's see. Let me find the index and I will tell you. Choosing a spindle, the science of spindles. What about the wheel? And then it has actually spinning, and the chapters are starting to spin, fine-tuning your yarn, getting more done, which spindle when, plying, and then living with spindles, because that sounds like you're in a zoo or something. How to live with spindles. And then finally it's spindle spun projects. So I presume it's like it's some nice knitting patterns with hand spun. How lovely. So very excited to read this. And while I was browsing that section, I also picked up Start Spinning by Maggie Casey. Everything you need to know to make great yarn. So I'm very excited to check this out too. I do think that I might have information overload even just from Respect the Spindle, but I felt like it doesn't hurt to check out a couple books and give them a read. So hopefully in the next few weeks I will have some spinning to show you. And finally, because I am a little crazy, I went for the fattest spinning book on the shelf, and this is the Alden Amos Big Book of Hand Spinning, being a compendium of information, advice, and opinions on the noble art and craft. And this is also by Interweave Press, just like Respect the Spindle and Start Spinning. And it appears that whoever gave this to the library purchased it from the Mannings, because that is the price tag in the corner. So these are all from my local library, and I'm very excited to give these a read. And that brings us to odds and ends. It was a busy week for me this week. I was at work really late for many reasons. But I still found time to knit because, of course, I started that new project and all I wanted to do was knit with my hand spun. And I won't get into it much more beyond that, but we had one really big news story, and it was basically my job to oversee it, and it was just a very difficult weekend. Just a really, really tough time. But I won't dwell on it, but I'm very thankful to have the job that I do and to try and tell people stories, and it's a big responsibility, and I hope that my colleagues and I do those big stories justice, and all that. So anyway, I'm rambling. We don't want to hear about the news business. So anyway, I took a lot of comfort in my knitting this weekend. I'll just leave it at that. So I have several patterns of the week to share with you guys this week. I have really been loving my Instagram feed lately. I follow a ton of people, and I love seeing what people are working on and designing and test knitting. And basically, I think all of these patterns that I'm about to show you come from my Instagram feed. Oh, and speaking of Instagram, this weekend, I talked in a recent episode about trying to go social media free or heavily reduce my activity on social media because I felt like it was taking up too much time on my days off work and I wasn't knitting enough. So what I did Saturday night after work was I put all of those time-consuming apps. I turned off notifications for Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and Twitter, and I put them all in a folder on the second screen of my home on my iPhone so that I couldn't see them. And really, not being able to see those apps has helped a lot. So I have barely looked at any of those apps this weekend, and when I do, I really try and just make it a minute or two and then put a cork in it and stop. So I'm going to try and keep doing that on my days off because I'm finding that I'm more productive when I don't have my phone, when I'm not, I don't know, it's just like I automatically go and I look at Instagram, and before I know it, 20 minutes have gone by, and I love my Instagram feed, but I could be knitting during that time, I could be relaxing and getting less screen time. So I'm working on it, but it felt really good to do that, and all the apps are still on the second page of my phone. It's still my weekend. So I'll probably put them back in a more visible location later tonight. But that has felt good, and I thought I would give you an update about that. So anyway, the patterns I want to share with you this week, there are 3 of them. The first is thanks to Java Jenny, whose feed I love on Instagram. She shared, I don't know if it was a test knit, but she shared this shawl that looked like it was from Handspun. And the pattern is called A Night at the Theater by Lucia Payne. And it's a fingering weight shawl. And I'm going to show you a photo of it. But the curious thing about this shawl is it's essentially a choose your own adventure shawl. It's like a mystery knit-along where you can choose chart A or chart B. But the entire pattern is like that. So I don't know if it was ever a mystery knit-along. But there are over 100 combinations of the various charts. So, And if you're like me, I was a child of the 80s and the early 90s, and the choose your own adventure books were really popular then, and I was a big reader, so I loved choose your own adventure books where you read 2 pages and then it says turn to page 138 if you want to see Joe go into the woods, and turn to page 157 if you want to see Joe go back into the house, that kind of thing. So this totally feeds into that love of choose your own adventure books. So it's a crescent-shaped shawl, and it says each of the 9 sections of this crescent-shaped shawl have 2 stitch pattern options. You may also choose to do garter or stockinette. This means that there are over 100 different combinations that you can choose from. So it's a charted pattern. It calls for 650 to 700 yards of fingering weight yarn, and it's a $6 pattern. So check it out. The next pattern I have to show with you is something I just clicked away from. It's it's by Shannon Squire, and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly. Viriditas. I'll link to the spelling in the show notes, but it is a single skein of sock yarn kind of shawlette, I suppose. And the description talks about this being pegged to spring, and it was released 4 years ago, but in the springtime, and it says, spring is an amazing time full of viriditas, the irrepressible greening growing power of nature. This richly textured pattern on this delightful tip-to-tip shawlette reminds us of the abundance of moss and leaves and trees and all the growing things so full of life in the Pacific Northwest in spring. So let me show you the detail shot on this first, because someone Instagrammed this detailed shot, and it just took my breath away, and that's why I had to share it with you. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm sorry for the glare out of my window behind here, but I just think that's so pretty, and I love that knitted on border. And here is the whole pattern, the whole shawl. So really, really like that. And finally, I have a new pattern from Mandarines, who has, of course, the Mandarines podcast. And this is her Moonlight Garden shawl. And, oh, and I should say, Viriditas costs $6. Moonlight Garden costs, it's a rate in euros. It's about $6.30 if you're American. This is a half pie shawl, and it has lace. It has different lace portions on alternate sides, so it creates a really unique texture. And then again, it has a knitted on border. I guess I have a thing for knitted on borders these days. So let me pull up this lovely photo, and she looks like she knit this with a really woolly wool. And again, this is a worsted weight shawl, but this does not look like worsted weight to me. It looks so light and cozy. Then again, when I pull up this photo, you can see just how enormous it is. So again, it calls for 960 yards of worsted weight wool, but I just think it looks really pretty and like a great wrap. Probably a little heavy for this time of year, but if you knit it now, you could wear it next fall or winter. So those are the 3 patterns I have to share with you today. If you have any pattern, if you see a pattern you like and you think it's worth sharing on the podcast, give me a shout, because I would love to share more patterns. I don't always have my finger on the pulse of what's hip and cool in the knitting world, so my Instagram feed basically feeds me what I see and what I share with you. And that brings me to our next area, which is a podcast recommendation. I've said before that I am so bad at keeping up with podcasts, but we are about to cancel our cable, especially now that The Walking Dead is over for the season. So I am probably going to be having more time to watch podcasts. And I don't even watch that much TV, honestly. I seem to have inherited my love of Law & Order SVU from my father, who watches it all the time, and I hated that show when I was a kid, but now I'm an adult and I watch it, so go figure. But that's really all I watch on TV these days, because I just have really not been, I've been watching that mini-series on the O.J. Simpson trial, but we had a problem with our cable box and had to swap them out, so all of my recordings went away, so I'm like 4 episodes behind, and I don't know if I'll ever catch up. So Anyway, that's a long way of saying I think I'm going to get back into watching podcasts very heavily very soon. So, one that I recently discovered is called the Charlotte and Gus podcast. And Charlotte is French. She's a young woman. I think she's in college, but that might be wrong. She might be in university or not. So she's only, I think, 6 or 7 episodes in, and I've watched about half of them so far. But I really enjoyed her pattern selection and just her aesthetic. What she chooses to knit is really lovely. And she has a very sweet kitten named Gus. So I highly recommend it. And I have to say that she has shared some of the sweaters she has knitted. And one of her very first sweaters, she designed the yoke herself, I'm pretty sure, including like short row shaping. You know, it was one of those, you knit the body, you knit from the waist up, and then you knit the yoke, or you knit the sleeves, and then you attach the sleeves and the body and knit the yoke. And I'm pretty sure, designed it herself, including some short row shaping, and it's stunning. So this girl has mad skills, and her podcast is definitely worth checking out. So there's my podcast recommendation of the week. And that brings us to the winners. Oh, and I know what I also wanted to mention. I don't know if any of you are Walking Dead fans, and I won't spoil anything, because if you watch The Walking Dead and you are behind, you know, I don't want to spoil it for you. I will just say that last night was the season finale, and I was disappointed because it was a cliffhanger. I did not think that was going to happen, and I was kind of annoyed. But it's no secret that they introduce a really big bad character named Negan, and he is played by the actor Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And I have a very difficult time resolving the fact that he plays this evil character and that he is a total babe. Because Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I have had a thing for him since he was on Grey's Anatomy. He was in this really tearjerker movie with Hilary Swank called P.S. I Love You, I want to say. I think I own it, and it's over there, but I can't see it, the title from here. I think that's the one, but anyway, it's very difficult. But I think even though we're planning on canceling our cable, I will probably buy each episode and watch it online, or whatever they do to get it online. So I'm going to keep watching, but I'm kind of annoyed that I've enjoyed this season so much, but I just did not like the way this ended. So I'll leave it at that. But anyway, that brings us to the very end of the episode, and it's time to announce the winners of our Antarktis Knitalong. So we have 2 winners, one person from the FO thread and one person from the chatter thread. And from the chatter thread, there were 63 posts all in all, and so I entered the numbers 2 through 63 because, of course, I was the first post. I entered 2 through 63 in random.org's generator, and first I won. I drew a random number of which I was the winner, so obviously I cannot win my own prize. So I redrew it, and post number 19 won, and that was Karen Sky, or Kareneski, if you will. So Karen from North Carolina, you win. Let me pull out the right. Yep. So you win yourself some heritage chocolate from Colonial Williamsburg and a lovely needle keeper from Pam, who I got to meet at the Virginia Beach Yarn Getaway. So congratulations, Karen. Message me on Ravelry and I will send you with your address, and I will get this in the mail to you. Plus, of course, is it in here? You'll get a Knit Shift pin. I always send a little Knit Shift swag with prizes. And for the big prize, from the FO thread, there were 19 entries. So thank you to everyone who played along. I put the numbers through 19 in the random.org generator. And post number 18 won, and that's Orange Maid, who is Helen from Scotland. And Helen actually has a podcast called Stitch with Sprite 966. So check it out. I will link to her podcast in the show notes. And Helen, you win a copy of Janina Kalio's one of her patterns. It's up to you to choose. So I will send Janina a message with your Ravelry name so she can reach out to you, and you get to choose a pattern. So take a look at Janina's patterns and choose one, and you will get it courtesy of Janina. So Janina, thank you very much. If you happen to be watching this, it was very sweet of you to donate a pattern. And also, Helen, I will be mailing you a second little prize. This is a DPN cozy from, again, Java Jenny, and she has Kitchen Counter Crafter. That's her website. Hopefully it'll focus if it wants to behave. kitchencountercrafter.com. And it's this lovely little cozy with mugs on it. I don't know if this is Orla Keeley fabric, but it certainly looks like it to me. And there's her fun little logo right there. So this was very generously donated to the podcast by Jenny. So thank you so much, Jenny. I have a very similar one that I use all the time. And yeah, so this will be in the mail to you along with some knit shift swag. Oh, and you also have some chocolate as well, and a little knit shift pin. So Helen, when you see this, message me on Ravelry, and send me your address, and I will get this in the mail to you. So, and I think Helen wins the prize for being the prize winner who is furthest afield. I don't think I've mailed any prizes overseas yet. So Helen, you win. I think that's everything for today. That felt like quite a lot in the end. So I will see you guys in a week. Thank you for watching. Happy knitting, and I hope you have a fantastic week. Bye.
Hey guys, I'm here in Freemason, which if you watched an episode or two ago, I gave you a little walking tour of. It's my day off work. Normally I would be podcasting for you right around now, but it is so stinking gorgeous out that I opted to stay out after I had lunch with a friend and enjoy the sunshine. So I am going to show you a little bit of my favorite thing about spring in Norfolk. Hopefully the wind isn't gusting too much. And I want to show you some azaleas. Azaleas are all over Norfolk. We have an azalea festival, and we are approaching peak azalea season here, and there are just so many vibrant colors of azaleas. While I'm out walking my dog, I think about which one's my favorite all the time. Like, I devote way too much time to thinking about it, and I just can't pick. You know, I go through phases where one color is my favorite. So because we are approaching peak azaleas, I figured I would show you some of my favorites around town. This house right here is one of my favorites in Freemason. It's just this little tiny place. It looks like an artist studio, but I love it.